Today I want to share with you 5 tips to instantly improve your photography, regardless of whether you have a camera or just a phone. When planning this video, I also gave myself 2 additional criteria. The first is that the tips had to be easy to do. That means that anyone can do them and that they're practical enough to do in most scenarios. The second was that there had to be no editing required. Again, so it's accessible to all. By the end of this video, I want you to see that you can take great photos regardless of the equipment that you own, and that actually having the limitations of not having all the fancy gear can actually make you become more creative, and that you'll develop a broader set of skills that is very important, because this broad set of skills means that you're always looking for opportunities to take photographs. Let's start by talking about backgrounds, which are incredibly important as they help to set the scene for your photographs. But how often have you come away from taking photographs only to realise there's something distracting in the background? Now fortunately, often it's quite an easy fix. For example, when I was down in the New Forest, I took this photo, which is a nice photo, but as you can see, there's a horse in the background, which is quite distracting. Fortunately, it was just a matter of taking a couple of steps to the left and that horse is gone. And I was still able to retain what was nice about the original photo, without having to do all the extra editing. Now the caveat of this tip is you might not always be able to move around. Fortunately, wild animals often do, and it might just be a case of waiting long enough for them to move somewhere new. As the animals move around, you'll also notice that they go into backgrounds of different colours. Colours can be very important for backgrounds because they can help your subject either to pop out from the background or to blend in with their surroundings. This is demonstrated very well from a set of photographs I took down in the Forest of Dean whilst watching the piglets. As you can see, the green grass really makes the piglets pop out, whereas the brown bracken, they blend in a lot more. Now both of these photos have their merit, and often it's just a matter of taste as to which you prefer. For me personally, I really like the brown tones in this photograph, how it blends in and really emphasises the camouflage that the piglets have, but each to their own. Backgrounds can also form a more integral part of the photograph in landscape photography. This photo from the New Forest, I really wanted to encapsulate the entirety of the landscape because the sunrise was just so fantastic. So keeping the subject small in the frame helped me to do that. Having the subject small in the frame also provides a great sense of scale to the landscape, and you end up with quite a stunning effect like this. Taking a couple of landscape photos like this during the day really helps to set the scene very well for the rest of your photographs. This is actually something I'm going to expand upon in tip 5. But first I'd like to talk about foregrounds. This is because foregrounds can often be used in a lot of the same ways that backgrounds can to help set the scene by providing an environmental context, such as additional trees or bushes in front of you, but they can also be used to help block distracting elements from the scene. For example, when I was down in the New Forest, I set myself the challenge of trying to photograph a horse and a pony at sunrise. However, the only horse and pony I could find within the time was down on a road. What I did was I took the gorse that was all around the road and used that as a foreground element to help block the road and create this final image here. Foregrounds can also be used to help frame a subject. For example, this photo taken down on the Bempton Cliffs of a beautiful gannet. So we've covered the background and the foreground. I think it's only natural that we now talk about the subject. Now when talking about the subject, I think there's one key tip that most wildlife photographers will agree is the most important thing. That is to try to get down to eye level with the subject. This generally has 2 benefits. The first of which is it provides you the perspective of the animal. The second is that generally when you're low down on the ground, animals will either be one of 2 things. The first is that they'll either be more relaxed, as you're not trying to run around and be big and scary to them, so they'll often hang around more. Or the second is that they're often more curious and they'll actually look at you and see what you're up to while you're lying on the floor in the middle of a car park. And this is your opportunity to get that eye contact for a great photograph. So we've covered a lot of how, but we haven't really talked about when to take the photograph. I think amongst photographers, it's generally accepted that the best time of day is the golden hour. Golden hour actually occurs twice a day. The hour before sunset and the hour after sunrise. It's a time of day when the sun is very soft and provides this wonderful golden colour, which helps to give golden hour its name. This golden colour will allow your photographs to go from this through to this. I think the only tricky part with this tip is being up early enough to see the sunrise or late enough for the sunset, but if you can do it, I massively recommend it. Moving on to my final tip. This is actually something taught to me by a good friend and fellow wildlife photographer, Drew Webb. I'll link his channel in the description below. We were actually shooting a wedding together one day, and he talked about this concept of tight, middle, wide. Now, like with weddings, moments are often fleeting. In a wedding, what you need to do is try and get the details, but also the wider context, all within a very short period of time. So the philosophy that Drew taught me is to keep in mind whenever you're shooting 3 words, that's tight, middle, wide. Essentially what you're trying to do is to take shots very close in, all the way through to out wide as well, to get those wider environmental shots. The best way to do this in wildlife is with a zoom lens. You can do it with primes, but it does mean that you're going to be moving forwards and backwards a lot more, which can disturb the animals, so it's a lot trickier to do. So the other option that you could do if you have primes is to take a photograph with the prime lens and swap to another camera. So for example, if you have a big prime lens, shoot with that and then swap to your phone to get the wide shots. Through doing this, I guarantee that you'll come away with a greater variety of shots, and you'll have a better understanding at the end of the day of the sort of shots that you really like. The best thing about digital cameras is that you can take hundreds and hundreds of photos, delete the rubbish ones, and just keep the best ones, and you'll be able to show these to your friends and they'll be absolutely amazed. Thanks very much for watching. I will catch you next time.